Once upon a time, the sun used to set early, casting long, scary shadows. Back then, there were only a few ways to light up the darkness. You could use candles, but they flickered and gave off not much light. Or, you could use oil lamps, but they smoked up the room and sometimes fell over. It was hard to do anything in the dark. People couldn't read or work after sunset. They had to go to bed right away. Many people wished there was a better way to light up the night. One day, a man named Thomas Edison decided to try to invent a new lamp. He wanted to make something that would shine bright light into the darkest corners, something that would stay upright even if someone bumped into it, something that could burn brightly without getting too hot, something that didn't rely on a flame that could go out easily. Edison worked on his idea for months, but he still didn't have enough money to buy all the materials he needed. So he did something crazy. He sold most of his things, including his house, and put all that money into his idea. Edison's first lamps were made of glass tubes and metal parts. He tried wrapping a thin cotton thread around a metal piece and then put it into a glass tube. Then he put a special liquid into the tube, sealed it up, and plugged it into an electric socket. When he turned on the electricity, the cotton thread started to glow brightly, but it also started to burn quickly. It glowed for a few seconds and then it went out. So Edison kept trying different things. He tried putting a wire made of metal inside the tube, but that burned away to nothing very fast. He even tried sticking a few pieces of bamboo inside the tube, but those just ended up sparking and burning up. Too bad he didn't know about tungsten back then, because that would have been the perfect material. Anyway, for years, he kept trying and learning from each of his mistakes. He learned that cotton burned too fast, metal melted away, and bamboo burned too easily. But he never stopped trying. Finally, he thought to himself, maybe he should go back to basics. After all, what is a flame? It's something that glows and gives off light and heat. Can't I make something like that without using a real flame? So Edison took a piece of wood, whittled it down until it was as thin as a thread. Then he put it inside a glass tube, added some chemicals, and sealed the ends. Then he put it inside a tank full of water and pumped some electricity through it. Suddenly, the wooden thread started to glow, not red like a fire, but white like a light bulb. And it didn't get hot enough to start a fire. Edison had finally invented the light bulb, but it was very delicate and only lasted for a few hours. Still, Edison knew he was onto something big. He spent more time making the light bulb stronger and longer lasting. Finally, he had something that could stay lit for days. It was like magic, except it wasn't magic. It was science. Of course, it didn't look exactly like your light bulb at first. It was kind of like a big pickle with two wires coming out of it. But the light bulb worked. It gave off nice bright light. And that's all that mattered. At first, not many people cared. Some scientists said it wouldn't change the world. Even some of Edison's friends didn't think it would amount to much. But Edison kept working on his idea. He improved the light bulb so that it lasted even longer. He also came up with ways to send electricity to buildings and streets. Soon, people all over the world were buying light bulbs to put in their homes. Stores stayed open later, factories worked all night, and street lamps made nighttime as bright as daytime. Light bulbs also helped people do all kinds of things. Students used them to study. Doctors operated on sick people in the middle of the night. Painters used them to see colors more clearly. Musicians used them to play in the orchestra. And writers wrote all kinds of amazing stories, just like the one you're hearing now. The world was changing because of the light bulb. Imagine walking down a street at night and seeing hundreds of little points of light in every window. It must have been amazing. People weren't afraid to walk outside anymore. They could see where they were going and watch the cars zoom by. Nighttime was fun now. People could go out and have ice cream, ride bikes, or go to parties. It was a magical time. The light bulb had changed the world. Now, let's talk about what the light bulb really did. First of all, it let people work when it was dark. Before the light bulb, people had to stop working when the sun went down. But with the light bulb, they could keep working. It helped factories run longer and produce more stuff. It also helped people do things they couldn't do before, like doctors who could perform surgeries at night. Second, It made cities safer. Before the light bulb, it was dangerous to walk around at night because there were no streetlights. But with the light bulb, cities could have streetlights that made it safe to walk around. Third, it helped people learn. With the light bulb, kids could read at night without using candles, and students could study things they couldn't see before. Fourth, it let people have fun at night. Before the light bulb, people would go home right after dinner because there was no other entertainment. But with the light bulb, people could go to parties and other fun places at night. Overall, the light bulb was one of the most important inventions ever. It changed the way we live, work, and play. Without the light bulb, we wouldn't be able to do many of the things we do today. You know, there are lots of amazing inventions out there, but none of them would have been possible without electricity. Electricity is everywhere. That's why it's so important. It powers our homes, schools, hospitals, and everything else we need to survive. But do you know where electricity comes from? Well, electricity comes from power plants. There are many different types of power plants, but they all do the same thing. They turn fuel into electricity. One of the most common types of power plants is a coal power plant. Coal power plants use coal to make electricity. The coal is burned to make steam, which turns a turbine. The turbine is connected to a generator, which makes electricity. Another type of power plant is a nuclear power plant. Nuclear power plants use nuclear fission to make electricity. In nuclear fission, uranium atoms are split apart. This releases energy, which is used to make steam. The steam turns a turbine, which turns a generator, which makes electricity. But do you know what happens to the electricity once it's made? Well, it goes through a power grid. The power grid is a network of wires that carry electricity to our homes and businesses. But do you know how the electricity gets to the power grid? Well, that's where transformers come in. Transformers are used to step up or step down the voltage of electricity. The electricity from power plants is at a very high voltage, so it needs to be stepped down before it can be used in our homes and businesses. But do you know what happens when the electricity is used up? Well, it goes back to the power plants as waste heat. The waste heat is released into the environment, which can have negative effects on the ecosystem. That's why it's important to find ways to make power plants more efficient. If we can make power plants more efficient, then we can reduce the amount of waste heat that's released into the environment. We can also reduce the amount of fuel that's needed to make electricity. By reducing the amount of fuel we use, we can reduce our dependence on fossil fuels, which is good for the environment. So do you see how important electricity is? Well, if you want to learn more about electricity, I have a lot more videos on my channel, so make sure to check them out. Also, if you're interested in other cool inventions, I have a video about the airplane and another video about the computer. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.